Okay, so today's daf yomi is Bava Basra, daf mem vav Bava Basra 46. And so this is the daf yomi for Shabbat Kodesh, and it's going to be dedicated for a shemira for all of the chayalim, safeguarding of all the chayalim, atzala for all the shvuyim, and a yeshua for Am Yisrael in this difficult time. So we're going to start on 46a, around 8 lines from the top. So the Gemara tells us the following brisa: Tanu Rabbanan Nisalfu Kalim Bekalim Bebeisa Uman. So the scenario can happen that you brought your stuff to let's say the tailor to fix. You brought your jacket, and instead of giving you back your jacket, he gave you the other guy's jacket. So it was switched in the tailor's property. Hareza yishtamish bahen. So then the halacha is you're allowed to use this. Ad sheyavu, you're allowed to use it. You got a new coat from the tailor. You got a different coat. You're allowed to use it. Ad sheyavu hala v'yito hashelo. Until so Reuben brought his coat to the tailor, and then instead he got back Shimon's coat. So he's going to be allowed to use Shimon's coat until Shimon comes back and takes his coat back from Reuben. But if it would be Bebeisa Aval or Bebeisa Mishta, if it would be in a Shiva house or a wedding, and then he somehow switched the coat in the Shiva house or he switched the coat in the wedding hall, then he wouldn't be allowed to use it. Then he wouldn't be able to use it under those circumstances. He would have to put it to the side. He wouldn't be able to use it. So Gemara says, Ma'ishna. So if it was the Beis Ava or the Beis Mishnah, he wouldn't be allowed to use it until this guy comes and takes his coat back and gives him his coat. Otherwise, he can't use it. So Ma'ishna Reisha, Ma'ishna Steifa. Why, if it was from the tailor and he got the wrong coat, he's allowed to use it. Whereas if it's from in the wedding hall, he's not able to use it. So Amar Rav, Havi Yasivna Kamei de Habibi. Rav says, I was sitting once in front of my uncle. That's who he calls Habibi. It's already the second time in this tractate he refers to his uncle, Rebbe Thia, as Habibi. V'amarli, and he explained to me, V'chiein Adam Asoy Lomar Uman Mechorli Talisi. He says, don't you think somebody is accustomed to say to a craftsman, sell for me my talus? And so that's what's going on here. We assume that what's going on here is that Reuven, when he came to the tailor, he said, sell my talus for me. And so therefore, now the third guy, Levi, came in, and the tailor sold him or gave him Shimon's talus, which Shimon had wanted to sell. And so therefore, since he had under those circumstances, that basically the third guy had come in. We'll read what the Rashbam says. Sha'uman machar talas achas shehu metukan. The mitzvah's balabayis, that the craftsman, the tailor, he sold the talis, the coat that was fixed with the permission of the balabayis, of the customer, and he had commanded him to sell it. Uman, and then the craftsman made a mistake, and he sold the wrong person's talis. And so now the other person came in. So he had sold Levi Reuben's talis. Reuben didn't want his talis sold. So now what happened is Shimon can't come. So now what happens is Reuben comes in, and he had accidentally sold Reuben's talus to Levi when he should have really had sold Shimon's. So he gives Shimon's talus to Reuben, and he says, when Shimon comes to you to get your to get his talus back, he'll give you back the talus that I accidentally sold. And so therefore, until he'll give it back. So since Shimon had intended his talus to be sold, Reuben would be allowed to use it. But in the Beis Ava or Beis Mishnah, but in a Shiva house or a wedding party, that wasn't the intent. The intent wasn't to sell or to get rid of it, and so therefore it's not going to be allowed to use. So the Gemara says, Maishna ratio, Maishna Seifa. So that's the distinction between the two. So Amar Rav Chia Braid Rav Nachman. So Rav Chia Braid Rav Nachman taught Lo Shanu. This distinction is only in the case Elahu, where the craftsman himself sold it. That's when you're allowed to use it. When the craftsman himself gave it. But if his wife or his children of the craftsman gave it to Reuben in this case, then it wouldn't be permitted because we could assume they made a mistake. And even if the craftsman himself gave it, we only say this if he says to Reuben, here, take this talus. But if he says it's your talus, then obviously it's going to sound like it's a mistake, and then it wouldn't be okay. Because Hailaf talus today, this is not his actual talus. So it says Amarle Abai Rava. Abai says to Rava, Abai said to Rava, come, I'm going to show you the Ramai, the Pumpadisa. I'm going to show you these deceptive people in Pumpadisa, my Avi. What do they do? Amarle Havli Sarvilai. If the customer comes to the craftsman in Pumpadisa, the tailors in Pumpadisa, he says, give me my coat that I asked you to fix. The craftsman says, no, you never gave me anything. And he says, he said, but I have witnesses that they saw it with you, and it's mine. Now, the witnesses know that there's a garment there, Rashbam says, but they don't know exactly if that's that garment. So he says, Ahu Achrina. So the tricksters of Pumpadisa saying, no, that's a different coat. He says, Afkina v'nachsinu. He says, take it out, and we'll show it to the witnesses. So he says, no. The trickster guy says, Ibra lo mafkina. He says, no. Really, I'm not going to take it out because of your claims. Your claims are meaningless, and I'm not going to show you somebody else's coat. And this is the deception, because they don't intend to really be acting for the sake of heaven. They really want to just trick this person and steal it from him. Amar Rava, Shapir Ka'amarlei. So Rava says, Shapir Ka'amarlei. So Rava says, no, he's actually speaking properly. Shapir Ka'amarlei. He's actually speaking properly. The trickster of Pumpadisa, he's actually speaking properly. Technically speaking, when he says to him, I don't want to take it out, even an honest craftsman could make it, even though we're pretty convinced that this guy is stealing, but even an honest craftsman could actually say, I don't want to take it out, because Ra Tanya, because the Brisa had stated above that Ra, he had said a person who saw his article. So only if you see it can you force him to take it out. But if he doesn't actually see it, then he doesn't have the proof of where it is, and he can't force him to take it out. Amar Vashi, the Chacham Mashvile Ra, if the person who's the plaintiff here is smart, he can turn into a case of Ra. How? He could say, he could say to the trickster, why are you holding on to my coat? Isn't it because to my talis? Isn't it because you have a claim against me for the money that I owe you? Meaning to say, you owe me money. So bring out the coat and let us assess its value. You'll take what you're entitled to, and I'll take mine. And then when he takes it out, and he's using this trick to get him to take it out. And so then once he see it, then he could bring in the witnesses to show it to him. So the craftsman can say, well, I don't need to assess your coat. Meaning to say that your people before you already assessed it. Meaning to say, it's not actually yours. Even though it looks like yours, it's not actually yours, and so therefore I don't have to take it out. So the Gemara says, the next statement of the Mishnah is talking about a sharecropper. And the Mishnah had stated And Aris ain't lo chazaka. The sharecropper has no chazaka. So, and the reason is because the sharecropper is allowed to use it. So the Gemara says, but why doesn't the sharecropper have a chazaka? Amai, why doesn't he have a chazaka? Until today, until now, he was only taking half for himself. But now, for the past 3 years, he's taking the whole thing. So from the fact that he's taking everything, that the sharecropper doesn't usually get half, he usually gets only a portion. Now he gets the whole thing. So that's a chazaka. So Rabbi Yochanan Barise Bati Avos. Now we're talking about people who what's called established sharecroppers, meaning to say they've been there for generations. And so therefore, those people, they have a different deal. Their deal is that rather than split the harvest with the owner every year, and what they do is they keep it for several years and then they switch off every few years. And so therefore, such sharecroppers, they can even have it for 3 years, and that's not a chazaka. Amar Rav Nachman, Oris Shahored Arisin Tachtav Yeshlo Chazaka. If a sharecropper comes along and puts a new sharecropper in his place, that is able to establish a chazaka. My timer, because the person isn't going to allow other sharecroppers to start working in his field, and he'll be quiet. And so therefore, if he puts in a different sharecropper, that's a proof that he has a chazaka. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Aris shecholak la'arisin ein lo chazaka. If there's an aris who put some of his work to other sharecroppers, that's not a chazaka. Aris shecholak la'arisin, and a sharecropper who puts some of his work to other sharecroppers, that's not going to be a chazaka. Meaning to say, my time, amor harmanya ba'alma shaviyeh. Because the fact is, even though he's subcontracting, that the owner of the field will allow it without being established as a chazaka. But if he puts in a total RS, he wouldn't allow it. That would be a chazaka. But just hiring subcontractors, that's not enough to say that he is establishing a chazaka. Shalchay Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Rav Nachman bar Yaakov, Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak bar Chisda sent a message to Rav Nachman bar Yaakov, teach us, our teacher, Aris Meid o Eno Meid. Can a sharecropper testify on behalf of his employer? Meaning, say somebody says that's not your field. Can the sharecropper testify that is his employer's field, or can he not testify? So Hava Yosef Rav Yosef Kamei. Rabbi Yosef was sitting there when the question came. So he said, this is one of the teachings that Shmuel gave. Aris made that Aris is allowed to testify that this is the landowner's field. But Tanya Enumai, but didn't we learn in the Brisa that he wasn't able to testify? So Gemara says, Lokasha, Ha'di'ika Pera Ba'ara, Ha'doeka Pera Ba'ara. So it depends where there is fruit in the field that's not yet been harvested. In a case where there is fruit in the field that has not yet been harvested, then the sharecropper is not believed to testify that it's the owner's field, because if somebody could prove that he's not the owner, he's not going to collect his full amount. But if there's no fruits in the field, then he would be able, then it doesn't really affect the sharecropper, and he could testify. And now the Gemara says that the simon to remember the next 4 cases is called Amoik. Now that's ironic, but that we're using Amoik as a way to remember. Normally we have to wipe out the memory of Amoik, but that's what we're learning here, that you use Amoik to remember. So Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Arev Meid Lulova, a guarantor can, this is the ayin of Amoik, the guarantor can testify on behalf of the borrower. The guarantor can testify on behalf of the borrower. So, meaning to say, if there's a piece of land and people are saying that it's not the borrower's, the guarantor can come along and testify that it's the borrower's. Who the Islay Arach Risa? That's only if the borrower has other land for which to pay the guarantor. Because you could say this land is not relevant because he's going to pay me from the other land. Malva made the lender can testify on behalf of the borrower. But who the Islay Arach Rita? Again, it's the same idea where the borrower has other land to pay back the lender. Okeach Rishon made Okeach Sheni. The first earlier purchaser can testify on behalf of a later purchaser that it's his property because it doesn't really matter because even though the later purchaser, if he can pay back the property, then they might come to take it from the earlier purchaser. But nevertheless, we're going to allow him to testify who the Eitzlei Arachise. That's where the later purchaser has other areas to collect the land. Kablan, let's say a Kablan who's a different type of a guarantor. Basically, the Kablan is a guarantor, Rashbam says, who specifically receives the loan from the lender and gives it to the borrower. Unlike the ordinary Arev, the Kablan is as responsible as the borrower is to the lender, meaning to say that he could come to him first, just at the same time it comes to the actual borrower. So Amrile Mayed, Amrile Ain't Mayed. Some say he can testify on behalf of the borrower, and some say he can't. The Nichole, Amrile Mayed, Amrile Ain't Mayed. Amrile Mayed carved. I mean, the one who says he can testify is like a guarantor. Amrile Ain't Mayed, the one who says he can't testify, the Nichole de la Biadei Travail, because he prefers that the borrower should continue to own the property. So when the lender comes to collect his debt, he can take it from whichever one of the borrower's property he desires. Okay, this is the Daf Yomi for Shabbos. Big shkoyach to everybody, and